The restaurant La Maison hadn't changed at all in 12 years. The same crystal chandeliers imported from France. The same dark wood paneling that tried to look European and only managed to look expensive. The same waiters who pretended not to recognize faces, but memorized the names on every credit card that passed through. Dante Corvino pushed through the double doors and stopped at the threshold. His reflection in the entrance mirror was unrecognizable. The 18-year-old kid who'd left this town with $40 in his pocket and a shattered heart had been replaced by a man in a custom-cut Armani suit, a watch that cost more than most local apartments, and a thin scar running from his left eyebrow down to his cheekbone, a permanent reminder that power comes with a price. "Sir, do you have a reservation?" The maitre d' was new, didn't recognize him. "Good." "Table 12, Dante replied, never taking his eyes off the dining room.
"Sir, table 12 is reserved for me." Something in the tone made the maitre d' swallow the rest of his sentence. It was a talent Dante had developed over the past decade. The ability to make people sense danger without him lifting a finger. An inflection, a half smile, eyes that didn't blink when they should. The man stepped aside, murmuring apologies. Dante crossed the dining room slowly. Every table he passed represented a memory.
There, in the corner, his drunk father had humiliated him in front of half the restaurant when he was 16. Near the window, he'd worked as a busboy for 3 summers straight, treated as invisible by customers who were probably bankrupt now. And there, in the VIP section elevated 3 steps above the rest of the restaurant. Because of course there had to be an elevated section. Because of course people in this town needed architecture to demonstrate superiority. Was her, Helena Gray. Dante's heart didn't stop. That's an expression for people who never learned to control every heartbeat, every breath, every micro-expression as a matter of survival. But he registered the moment with the precision of someone trained for years to notice details. The curve of her neck, the same gesture she made of tilting her head when she was uncomfortable, the red dress that highlighted her olive skin, the dark hair pinned up in a bun that looked casual, but probably took 20 minutes to achieve. 12 years. And he could still recognize when she was pretending to be okay. She wasn't alone. Of course she wasn't. Marcus Ashford. The heir to the Ashford empire hadn't changed either, but in a different way. Still had the same smile that never reached his eyes, the same way of sitting as if the space around him was his property, the same manner of holding a wine glass like he was posing for a photograph. Dante watched them from the base of the steps. He wasn't in a hurry. After 12 years, a few more minutes didn't make a difference. What did make a difference was what happened next. Helena said something. Dante was too far to hear, but he recognized the body language. Tense shoulders, chin raised, eyes that didn't look away. She was rejecting something, refusing. And Marcus didn't like it. The heir leaned across the table, the smile disappearing. He said something that made Helena shrink back in her seat. Then he reached out and grabbed her arm, hard, the kind of hard that leaves bruises. The world went very quiet. Dante climbed the steps, grabbed a wine glass from the nearest table without looking at the couple dining there, kept walking. When he reached Marcus and Helena's table, he simply crushed the glass in his own hand. The crystal shattered with a sharp sound that silenced conversations around them. Red wine ran between his fingers, mixing with blood from the cuts. Dante didn't even blink. "Take your hand off her," he said, his voice absolutely calm. "Now." Marcus Ashford, who had probably never heard that tone directed at him in his entire privileged life, looked up with the expression of a man about to ask, "Do you know who you're talking to?" Then he recognized Dante. And for the first time in 12 years, Dante saw real fear cross that arrogant face. Corvino? Ashford. The name sounded like a sentence. Maybe it was. Helena pulled her arm free, taking advantage of the distraction. Marcus let go by reflex, but his eyes never left Dante. "You." Marcus tried to recover his composure, adjusting his jacket. "You disappeared. Everyone thought you died somewhere." Sorry to disappoint. Dante finally allowed his gaze to meet Helena's. Up close, her eyes were exactly as he remembered, brown with golden flecks that looked like fire when the light hit them right. She stared at him with a mixture of shock, confusion, and something else he couldn't identify. "Dante," she said, and her voice saying his name did something that 12 years of violence, business, and survival hadn't managed. It shook his composure for a second. "Helena! What are you? Bleeding in my restaurant?" A waiter materialized beside them, visibly terrified, offering white napkins that immediately turned red. Dante accepted them, more to give his hands something to do than out of necessity. The cuts were superficial. He had worse scars in places this restaurant would never see. "Your restaurant?" Marcus found his voice, his tone wavering between indignation and disbelief. "Bought it last week. The previous owner was eager to sell." Dante smiled, showing teeth. "Something about old debts. You understand." It was a lie. Dante had bought the restaurant 3 months ago, along with 17 other properties downtown. But Marcus didn't need to know that. Helena stood, grabbing her purse. Her movements were controlled, measured. She was trying to process the situation without showing how affected she was. "I'm leaving." "Helena," Marcus started. "I said no before you grabbed my arm, Marcus. The answer hasn't changed." "We need to talk about—" "No, we don't." She descended the steps without looking back. Dante watched every step, every line of tension in her shoulders, the way she kept her head high even when she clearly wanted to run. He knew that feeling. "She's not yours," Marcus said, low, when Helena disappeared through the door. "She never was." "No," Dante agreed, turning to face the air. "She doesn't belong to anyone. That's the difference between you and me, Ashford. I understand that. You think you can come back after 12 years and I don't think anything. I do." Dante tossed the bloody napkins onto the immaculate tablecloth. "Enjoy your dinner. The bill's already paid. Consider it a welcome-back gift." He descended the steps, each pace deliberate, aware that the entire restaurant was watching, that tomorrow the whole town would know he was back, that the war that had started 12 years ago when a poor kid dared to dream about a rich girl was about to enter a new phase. At the exit, the maitre d' held the door like his life depended on it. Maybe it did. The night was cold. Helena stood on the sidewalk, waiting for a taxi that wasn't coming, her arms crossed against the wind. "Are you following me now?" she asked without turning around. "You're standing in front of my restaurant. You said it was yours 2 minutes ago. I'm still processing. You are always quick to process." Dante stopped beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Best grade in the class for critical analysis, if I remember correctly. She finally turned. Her eyes, up close and under the streetlights, were more beautiful than his memory allowed. "You remember grades from college? From 12 years ago?" "I remember everything, Helena." The weight of the sentence hung between them. "What are you doing here, Dante?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "Really? Really?" He considered the question. Closing circles. That's very vague and very dramatic for someone who just crushed a glass in his own hand. A sound escaped his throat. Almost a laugh. How long since he'd almost laughed? "You were always like this." "Like what?" "Incapable of letting anything go without comment." "It's a problem," she admitted. "My therapist agrees." This time he actually smiled. Small, almost imperceptible, but real. A black car pulled up to the curb, not a taxi. 2 men in suits exited the vehicle with the efficiency of people who practice the movement 1,000 times. "Mr. Corvino," one of them said, "there's an urgent call." Helena observed the scene, the car, the men, the obvious deference, and connected the dots faster than most would. "Mr. Corvino," she repeated, "with bodyguards, and a restaurant you bought. Among other businesses." "You became a businessman?" "Something like that." She narrowed her eyes. He could almost see the gears turning. Marcus was scared when he saw you. Her voice was analytical now, professional, the restorer examining the painting for forgeries. Not surprised, scared. Like you were dangerous. And you're not? Scared? Helena tilted her head the way he remembered. You just cut your own hand for me. I don't know if that's romantic or completely insane, but scary isn't the word I'd use. What word would you use? She was silent for a moment, studying him like he was a piece whose authenticity she couldn't determine. I'd use unexpected, she said finally. You were so different. Before. I was poor and invisible. You were kind. The word hit him harder than any punch. People change. Not like this. Not completely. She took a step back, like she was about to leave a room with a bomb in it. What happened to you, Dante? Life happened. That's also very vague. The phone in one of the bodyguard's pockets vibrated. The man checked it, and his face paled slightly. Sir, it's urgent. Dante didn't take his eyes off Helena. I need to go, he said. But we're going to talk again. Is that a promise or a threat? Depends on how you choose to interpret it. He turned toward the car, then stopped. Helena. What? Your brother, Lucas. He saw her body stiffen instantly. I know about the debt. The blood drained from her face. For a second, just 1 second, the mask fell completely, revealing pure terror. How do you... I know everything that happens in this town now. He opened the car door. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock at the studio. I'm going to make you a proposal. You can refuse, but you'll want to hear it. Dante, good night, Helena. The car pulled away before she could respond. Inside the vehicle, the older bodyguard, Bernard, who had been with Dante since the beginning, waited until they were 2 blocks away before speaking. The council won't like this. The council doesn't need to like it. She's a civilian. No involvement. I know. And her brother owes $300,000 to the Ashfords. That's not a small debt. It's a statement. I know that too. Bernard sighed. He'd worked for Dante long enough to recognize when arguing was useless. So, what's the plan? Dante looked through the window as the familiar streets passed by, transformed, modernized, but still carrying the ghosts of the past on every corner. The plan is simple. Helena doesn't go to the Ashfords. Her brother doesn't die. And Marcus learns that some things can't be bought. And if she refuses, she's free to refuse. And the debt? Dante's jaw tightened. In the darkness of the car, the scar on his face looked deeper, older. I'll pay it. $300,000. For a woman you haven't seen in 12 years. For the only person who was ever kind to me when I had nothing. Dante met Bernard's eyes in the rearview mirror. That's worth more than money. Bernard said nothing, but in 30 years of this business, he'd learned to recognize when a man was walking into something bigger than himself. And Dante Corvino, the most feared name on the East Coast, the man who'd built an empire from nothing, who never showed weakness, who never let emotion cloud judgment. Dante Corvino was about to break every rule he'd ever made. For her. Helena's studio smelled like turpentine and old canvas, the scent of patience, of things being carefully restored to what they once were. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante's face. Not the scarred, dangerous man from last night, but the boy she'd known 12 years ago. The quiet one who worked 3 jobs and still found time to leave wildflowers on her desk. The one who disappeared without a word, leaving nothing but rumors and silence. Now he was back, and he knew about Lucas. How? The clock on the wall read 2:47 p.m. 13 minutes until her life either imploded or... What? Got worse, got better. She couldn't imagine how. Her brother's debt wasn't just money. $300,000 to Marcus Ashford meant ownership. It meant Lucas would work for them, doing things that couldn't be undone, becoming someone who couldn't be saved. or it meant her. Marcus had made that abundantly clear last night, before Dante's dramatic entrance. Marry me, and your brother walks free. Simple transaction. She'd rather die. But she wouldn't let Lucas die either. The studio door opened at exactly 3 p.m. Dante walked in alone. No bodyguards, no entourage. Just a man in a dark coat, surveying her workspace with an expression she couldn't read. "You're punctual," she said, not getting up from her restoration table. "You're nervous." He stopped 3 feet away, hands in his pockets. "Your left hand hasn't stopped moving since I walked in." Helena forced her hand still. "Damn him. You said you had a proposal." "I do." "Then propose." Something flickered in his eyes. Almost amusement. "Marry me." The words hung in the air like smoke. Helena laughed. It came out sharp, brittle. "That's funny. Marcus said the same thing last night. Is this some kind of rich man competition I don't know about?" "It's not a competition." Dante's voice was steady. "It's a choice. Between 2 men who want to own me." "No." He stepped closer. "Between a man who sees you as a trophy and a man who sees you as—" "Helena." Her throat tightened. "You don't know me anymore, Dante. 12 years is a long time. I know you restore art because you believe broken things deserve second chances. I know you visit your mother's grave every Sunday. I know you've turned down 3 gallery positions in New York because you won't leave your brother alone." He paused. "And I know you're terrified right now, but you haven't run. That tells me everything. You've been watching me. I've been protecting you. For 2 years. You just didn't know it. The revelation hit like cold water." "Why?" "Because you were kind to me once, and I don't forget." Helena stood, her legs unsteady. "That's insane. I gave you my notes in art history. I shared my lunch when you forgot yours. That's everything." His voice cracked, just barely. "To a kid who had nothing, who was nothing to everyone else. That was everything, Helena." Silence stretched between them. "What happens if I say yes?" she whispered. "Your brother's debt disappears tonight. You move into my home, separate rooms, your own space, your own life. I ask nothing from you except presence, the appearance of a marriage. And in return, Marcus Ashford loses, and I get to keep you safe. For how long? As long as you want. A year, 10 years, forever." He held her gaze. "The door is always open, Helena. You can leave whenever you choose. I'll never force you to stay. Why marriage? Why not just pay the debt and walk away?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. "Because Marcus won't stop. If I just pay the debt, he'll find another way. Create another trap. He's obsessed with you. Not because he loves you, but because you're the one thing he couldn't buy." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "But if you're my wife, he can't touch you. No one can." "Your wife." Helena tasted the words. "Mrs. Corvino. Do you have any idea what people say about that name?" "Yes. They say you're dangerous. They say people disappear. Some of that is true." "Which parts?" "The dangerous part." He didn't look away. "I've never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it, and I've never hurt a woman. Ever." Helena studied him. The scar, the hard edges, the shadows behind his eyes. But underneath all of it, she could still see him. The boy who left flowers. The boy who looked at her like she was the sun. "I have conditions," she said. "Name them. I keep working. My studio, my clients, my life. Done. I'm not a trophy wife. I won't smile for cameras or play hostess for your business associates. I wouldn't ask you to. And Lucas. He stays out of your world, completely. He goes to rehab, gets clean, starts over. No involvement with any of this. Already arranged. There's a facility in Vermont. Private, discreet. He can leave tomorrow." Helena's eyes burned. She blinked rapidly. "You already planned this. I planned for every answer you might give. Dante reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet box. Including yes. He opened it. Inside was a ring, not the gaudy diamond she expected, but a simple band of white gold with a single sapphire. Elegant, understated, her mother's birthstone. How did you... I remember everything, Helena. His voice was soft now. I told you. She stared at the ring, at him, at the impossible situation that somehow felt like the only possible choice. If I do this, she said slowly, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you're still him. Somewhere underneath all of this. She gestured at his suit, his scars, his power. Promise me the boy who left flowers isn't completely gone. Dante's composure finally cracked. Just for a moment she saw it, the loneliness, the longing, the 12 years of becoming something hard, just to survive. He's not gone, he said quietly. He's just been waiting. For what? For you to see him again. Helena took the ring. The Corvino estate sat on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, a fortress of stone and glass that seemed to grow from the rock itself. Helena pressed her forehead against the car window, watching the iron gates swing open. 12 hours ago, she'd been a single woman with a failing brother and mounting terror. Now she wore a sapphire ring and a new last name. The courthouse wedding had been quick, efficient. 2 signatures, 1 judge who didn't ask questions, and it was done. Mrs. Corvino. The title felt like a costume she hadn't learned to wear yet. You're quiet, Dante said from beside her. I'm processing. You've been processing for 6 hours. It's a lot to process. The car stopped in front of massive oak doors. Before Helena could reach for the handle, a woman appeared on the steps. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, dressed in black, like she was perpetually attending a funeral. That's Mara, Dante said. She runs the household. She'll hate you on principle for about 3 weeks, then she'll die for you. It's her way. Comforting. They exited the car. Mara descended the steps with the posture of a general inspecting troops. So, the older woman said, looking Helena up and down, you're the one. The one what? The one he's been insufferable about for 12 years. Mara sniffed. You're shorter than I expected. And you're exactly as terrifying as I expected. Something flickered across Mara's face, almost approval. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late. Mr. Corvino despises tardiness. She turned and marched back inside. Helena looked at Dante. Did I pass? She didn't throw anything at you. That's a good sign. The interior of the mansion was surprisingly warm. Rich woods, soft lighting, artwork that made Helena's restorer heart ache with envy. A Caravaggio hung casually in the hallway. Casually. Is that real? She breathed. Everything in this house is real. That painting is worth more than most countries' GDP. Then you'll appreciate the library. He led her through corridors that seemed endless, finally stopping at a set of double doors. When he pushed them open, Helena forgot how to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace large enough to stand in, and on the walls, paintings she'd only seen in textbooks. Originals. All of them. This is... She couldn't finish. Yours. What? This room. It's yours. I had it prepared when I knew you'd say yes. Dante stood by the door, watching her reaction. The books are first editions. The paintings are legitimate. I have documentation if you want to verify. And that desk by the window has the same north-facing light as your studio. Helena walked to the center of the room, turning slowly. You built me a sanctuary. I built you an escape, in case living with a monster becomes unbearable. She stopped turning. Is that what you think you are? It's what I am. Monsters don't give their wives private libraries. This one does. Helena crossed the room until she stood directly in front of him, close enough to see the pulse in his throat, the tension in his jaw, the carefully controlled stillness of a man who could break things but chose not to. "Thank you," she said. "You don't have to. I know I don't have to. That's why I'm saying it." She reached up, almost touching the scar on his face, then stopped herself. What happened? This scar? A lesson. In what? In trusting the wrong people. He caught her wrist gently, lowering her hand but not releasing it. "Don't feel sorry for me, Helena. I survived. They didn't." A chill ran down her spine, but beneath it, something else. Something warm. "Your room is across the hall," he said, releasing her wrist. "Private bathroom, sitting area, balcony facing the ocean. Mara will bring you anything you need." "Where do you sleep?" "The east wing. That's on the other side of the house." "I told you. Your own space, your own life." "And if I need you?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. For a moment the mask slipped, and she saw something raw underneath. "Then I'll be there." He stepped back, creating distance. Always. He left before she could respond. Dinner was a performance. Helena descended the stairs at exactly 6:58 to find the dining room occupied by 3 people she didn't recognize. A younger man with Dante's dark features but softer edges, an elderly gentleman who looked like he'd been carved from the same stone as the estate, and a woman around Helena's age with red hair and a calculating gaze. Dante stood at the head of the table. When he saw her, something shifted in his expression. Relief? Pride? "Helena, this is my family." He gestured to each in turn. "My younger brother, Marco, my uncle, Victor, and my cousin, Rosalie, the famous Helena." Marco grinned, charming and a little dangerous. "I was starting to think Dante made you up. I assure you I'm real." "That remains to be seen," Rosalie said coolly. "Marriages of convenience have a way of revealing true natures." "Rosalie," Dante's voice carried warning. "What?" "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." She sipped her wine, eyes never leaving Helena. 300,000 is a lot of money. Some might call that a purchase. Helena felt her temper rise, that familiar heat that always got her into trouble. "And some might call your comment incredibly rude." She smiled sweetly. "But I was raised with manners, so I won't." Silence. Then Marco burst out laughing. "Oh, I like her. Finally, someone with teeth." Victor, the uncle, studied Helena with ancient eyes. "You're not afraid," he observed. "Most people who enter this house are afraid." "Should I be?" "That depends." He set down his fork. "Do you intend to betray my nephew?" "I intend to survive this, whatever that requires." Victor smiled, slow, cold, approving. "Good answer." Helena looked at Dante. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't decode, but his hand under the table found hers, and he didn't let go for the rest of the dinner. 3 weeks into marriage, Helena discovered that living with Dante Corvino was like living with a ghost who paid the electricity bill. She saw him at breakfast, silent, reading reports, drinking black coffee. She saw him at dinner, listening more than speaking, watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. And then he vanished into the east wing, and the mansion became hers alone. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it was maddening. "You're staring at your eggs like they insulted your mother," Mara observed, refilling Helena's coffee. "I'm thinking." "About him?" Helena looked up. In 3 weeks, Mara had transformed from hostile gatekeeper to reluctant ally. The shift happened somewhere around day 10, when Helena helped her hang new curtains without being asked. "Is he always like this?" Helena asked. "Present but absent?" "He's protecting you." "From what?" "From himself." Mara set down the coffee pot. "He thinks if he gets too close, he'll contaminate you. That you'll see what he really is, and run." "What is he, really?" "A good man who's done terrible things." Mara paused. "Or a terrible man who's done good things. Depends on the day." Before Helena could respond, the dining room doors burst open. Bernard, Dante's head of security stood in the entrance. His face was pale. "Mrs. Corvino, you need to come with me. Now." The security room was a wall of screens showing every angle of the estate. Helena had never been inside. Dante kept this part of the house separate from her carefully curated sanctuary. Now she understood why. On the center screen, paused on a single frame, was her brother. Lucas stood at the gates of the estate, flanked by two men she didn't recognize. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. He looked like a corpse that hadn't gotten the memo. "He checked himself out of the facility yesterday," Bernard explained. "We tracked him to a meeting with Ashford's people last night." Helena's blood turned to ice. "No. I'm sorry, Mrs. Corvino. He was clean. He was getting better. He promised—" "Ashford got to him." Dante's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, his face carved from stone. "Offered him a deal. Lucas's freedom in exchange for information about this house, about you." "Lucas wouldn't. He already has." Dante crossed to the screens, his movements controlled. "He's been feeding them details for 2 weeks. Security rotations. Your schedule. Which rooms you use." Helena felt the ground shift beneath her. "He's my brother. He's a liability. He's sick, Dante. Addiction is— I know what addiction is." His voice cracked like a whip. "My father drank himself to death and took my mother with him. I know exactly what addiction is, Helena. But this isn't about pills or powders. This is about choice. And your brother chose to betray you." She stared at him, tears burning her eyes. "What are you going to do?" "What I have to. Dante, he's at the gates right now asking to see you. Ashford's men are parked half a mile down the road, waiting for him to report back." Dante turned to face her fully. "If I let him in, he gathers more information. If I turn him away, Ashford knows we're onto them and accelerates whatever plan he has. And if you—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm not going to kill your brother, Helena." Something softened in his eyes. "I told you, I don't hurt innocents. Stupid and desperate doesn't make someone guilty." "Then what?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. "We let him in. We feed him false information. We use him to send Ashford exactly where we want him." He stepped closer. "But only if you agree. He's your family. This is your choice." Helena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "If we do this, will Lucas get hurt? Not by me. Not by my people. And after? When Ashford realizes he's been played? After your brother goes somewhere Ashford can never reach him. New identity. New life. Far away from all of this. Will I ever see him again?" The question hung in the air. Dante's jaw tightened. "That depends on him. On whether he wants to be your brother more than he wants to destroy himself." Helena closed her eyes. She thought of Lucas at 8 years old, building sandcastles. At 15, holding her hand at their mother's funeral. At 22, the first time she found him unconscious with a needle in his arm. She thought of every second chance, every broken promise, every time she chose hope over evidence. "Do it," she whispered. "Use him." Dante nodded. No triumph, no satisfaction, just grim understanding. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." She opened her eyes. "This is what survival looks like." "You taught me that." He reached out, hesitating, then gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "No," he said quietly. "You taught yourself. I just showed you the door." Helena caught his hand before he could pull away. "Stay," she said. "Tonight. Just stay." Dante's composure cracked. "Helena, I'm not asking for anything except presence. The appearance of a marriage, remember?" She tried to smile. "Consider it part of the contract." He stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Lucas would return to Ashford with carefully crafted lies, security vulnerabilities that didn't exist, schedules that led nowhere. A fictional shipment that would draw Marcus out of hiding and into Corvino territory. Helena watched the preparation from the library window, her sanctuary now feeling less like an escape and more like a gilded cage. You should eat something. She turned. Dante stood in the doorway, holding a plate of toast and fruit like it was a peace offering. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 18 hours. You're counting? I count everything about you. He set the plate on her desk. It's becoming a problem. Despite everything, Helena felt the corner of her mouth twitch. That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Then you've been dating the wrong people. Clearly. They stood in silence, the weight of the coming night pressing down on both of them. Marcus will come personally, Dante said finally. He won't trust anyone else with this. His ego won't allow it. And when he does, we end this. End it how? Dante didn't answer. He didn't need to. You're going to kill him, Helena said flatly. I'm going to remove a threat to my family. Is that what we are now? Family? He looked at her. Really looked, the way he had that first night at the restaurant. You've always been my family, Helena. You just didn't know it. Midnight came cold and clear. Helena was supposed to stay in the library. That was the agreement. She would remain safely tucked away, while Dante and his people handled the ambush. She lasted approximately 40 minutes. The estate's east garden was a maze of hedges and shadows. Helena moved through it silently, following the distant sound of voices toward the old greenhouse that Bernard had mentioned as the meeting point. She shouldn't be here. She knew that. But Lucas was in there. Her brother, walking into a trap that she had sanctioned. And despite everything, the betrayal, the broken promises, the years of disappointment, she couldn't hide while he faced the consequences. The greenhouse loomed ahead, its Victorian glass panels gleaming under the moonlight. Through the fogged windows, she could see figures moving. 3, maybe 4. Then she heard the gunshot. Helena's heart stopped. She ran. The greenhouse door was unlocked. She burst inside to find chaos, overturned plant tables, shattered pottery, and Lucas on the ground, with blood spreading beneath him. Lucas! She dropped to her knees beside him. The wound was in his shoulder, not fatal, but bleeding badly. His eyes were glassy with shock. Helena, you shouldn't. Shut up. Just shut up. She pressed her hands against the wound, hot blood seeping between her fingers. This wasn't a painting. She couldn't restore this. She couldn't. Well, well. The voice sliced through her panic. Marcus Ashford emerged from the shadows, a gun in his hand and a smile on his face. Behind him, 2 of his men held Bernard at gunpoint. No sign of Dante. The wife comes to save the brother. Marcus clicked his tongue. Predictable. Dante really should have known better. Where is he? Helena demanded. Your husband, occupied. My people created a very convincing distraction at the north gate. He stepped closer. By the time he realizes the real action is here, we'll be long gone. You and I have unfinished business, Helena. I'd rather die. That can be arranged. He aimed the gun at Lucas's head. But let's start with him, unless you'd like to reconsider my original offer. Helena's mind raced, blood on her hands, brother beneath her, monster in front of her. And then, a soft sound, almost imperceptible, a shift in the shadows behind Marcus. She kept her eyes on him, didn't react. Your original offer was insulting, she said, louder than necessary. You wanted a trophy. I wanted what was mine. I was never yours. No. Marcus smiled. But you will be. He raised the gun. And Dante materialized from the darkness like death itself. One moment Marcus was triumphant. The next, he was on the ground, the gun skittering across concrete, Dante's knee on his chest, and a knife at his throat. You were saying? Dante's voice was ice. Marcus laughed, the desperate sound of a man who knew he'd lost. You won't kill me! My family! Your family has already received evidence of your embezzlement from their accounts. By morning, you'll have bigger problems than me. The color drained from Marcus's face. "You... I don't need to kill you, Ashford." Dante leaned closer. "I just need to destroy you. And I have, completely." He stood, leaving Marcus gasping on the floor. His eyes found Helena, bloodied, terrified, magnificent. "You were supposed to stay in the library. I've never been good at following orders." Something cracked in his expression, something warm. I noticed. 3 months later, the sapphire ring still felt foreign on Helena's finger. Not wrong, just unexpected, like a word she was still learning to pronounce. The library had become her true home within the mansion. She'd restored 2 paintings, acquired 3 new clients, and somehow taught Mara how to appreciate abstract expressionism. Small victories. Lucas was in California now. New name, new life, 6 months sober. He called every Sunday. Awkward conversations filled with apologies she wasn't ready to accept, but no longer refused to hear. Marcus Ashford had vanished from society. The embezzlement scandal destroyed his family's reputation. Last she heard, he was selling real estate in Florida, desperately avoiding anyone who remembered his name. The war was over. So why did she feel like she was still waiting for something? "You're thinking too loud." Helena looked up from her restoration table. Dante stood in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. The most casual she'd ever seen him. "I didn't hear you come in. You were concentrating." He crossed to her desk, examining the painting she was working on. 17th century, Dutch, minor water damage, significant cracking in the varnish. "You've been studying. I've been listening. There's a difference." He paused. "You talk to your paintings when you think no one's around." Helena felt heat rise to her cheeks. "That's embarrassing." "It's endearing." He sat on the edge of her desk, another unprecedented casualness. "You treat them like patients, like they deserve gentleness." "They do. So do you." The words hung between them. Helena set down her brush. "Dante." "Helena, what are we doing?" He considered the question with the seriousness he applied to everything. "I believe we're having a conversation. You know what I mean." "I do." He turned to face her fully. "And I've been avoiding this conversation for 3 months because I'm terrified of the answer." "You? Terrified? Of you? Constantly?" Helena laughed, genuine, surprised. "The most feared man on the East Coast is afraid of a 5'6" art restorer." The most feared man on the East Coast would burn his empire to the ground if she asked. His voice dropped. "That's what terrifies me." Silence. Helena rose from her chair, closing the distance between them until she stood directly in front of him. "The contract we made," she said slowly. "It was for appearance, for survival." "Yes. And you've kept every promise, the space, the freedom, the door that's always open." "Yes. But the door goes both ways, Dante." She reached up, finally touching the scar on his face, the one she'd wanted to touch since that first night. "I can walk out, or I can walk in, into your life. Actually into it." His breath caught. "Helena, I'm not finished." She traced the scar down to his jaw. 12 years ago, you left flowers on my desk, and I was too stupid to see what was right in front of me. I let you disappear. I let Marcus convince me that power and money were what mattered. You were 18. I was blind." Her hand settled on his chest, feeling his heartbeat, rapid, unsteady, human. "But I see you now. Not the empire, not the reputation. You. And what do you see? A man who built a library for a woman he hadn't seen in 12 years. A man who saved my brother even after he betrayed us. A man who sleeps across the house because he's terrified of wanting too much." She met his eyes. "A man who's still leaving flowers, just in different forms." Dante's composure shattered. He pulled her close, not roughly, but desperately, like she was the only real thing in a world made of shadows. "I don't deserve you. Probably not. She smiled against his chest. But I'm making the choice anyway. Helena, I'm staying. Not because of the contract, not because of the safety. Because of you. She pulled back enough to look at him. I love you. The boy who left flowers and the man who burns empires. All of it. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't polished. It was 12 years of waiting, of longing, of two people who finally stopped running from the inevitable. When they broke apart, breathless, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. The boy who left flowers, he said quietly, he never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. I know. Helena smiled. That's why I'm staying forever. Forever is a long time. Good thing I'm patient. She kissed him again, softer this time. I restore broken things for a living. And you, Dante Corvino, are my masterpiece. 1 year later. The nursery was painted sage green. Helena had insisted on doing it herself, despite Mara's protests and Dante's visible anxiety every time she climbed the ladder. The doctor said no stress, he reminded her for the 100th time. Painting isn't stress, it's therapy. She stepped back, admiring her work. Besides, our daughter deserves a room her mother created. Dante stood behind her, his hand resting gently on her rounded belly. Our daughter, he repeated. The wonder in his voice still hadn't faded. I never thought. Neither did I. Helena leaned into him. But here we are. Here we are. The mansion that once felt like a fortress now felt like home. The family that once felt like strangers now felt like family. And Dante Corvino, the most feared man on the East Coast, spent his evenings reading baby books and learning to paint nursery walls. Some things couldn't be bought, but they could be earned. One choice at a time. The end.